even though the grooms aren't supposed to be excited and interested in their wedding preparations. I was. Melanie's bridesmaids, a close group of her girlfriends she had known forever, giggled, calling me metrosexual, as I heatedly discussed the various flavors of cake and shades of napkins, but I didn't care. And when Melanie and I had a screaming row over the flower arrangements, lilies, really? Can we think just a little outside the box, darling? They actually took my side. I liked her bridesmaids fair enough. For the first year of our relationship, they had been an amorphous blob of vaguely interchangeable Melanie's girlfriends, and I never quite got round to learning their names. After all, Melanie mostly hung out with them without me. As the months passed, I learned there was the tall one, the curvy one, the one who looked like the non-actress version of Juliana Margulies, and the bitchy one. And now the wedding preparations were fully underway, I was starting to tell them a bit apart. But still, perhaps it was their habit of dressing in generally similar styles, often in each other's clothes, and doing their hair and makeup pretty similar too, that often led me to confuse them. But so long as they went along with the vision we had for our perfect day, it was all good. In fact, we were talking about the bridesmaids' dresses when I first realized there might be a problem. Melanie casually mentioned Elaine, one of her bridesmaids. It didn't first register with me. Melanie kept talking about the dresses. But she really dislikes the sage green we picked for the color of the dresses. I told her that was all you, darling. Suddenly, my brain did a double take. Elaine? Your childhood friend? Melanie nodded. She's so excited for the wedding, and to be bridesmaid. She never got to be bridesmaid while she was alive, so I'm happy to do this for her. I sat down heavily and suddenly, and looked at Melanie, who was staring at her face carefully in the mirror, contouring her cheeks. Ugh. She was using that shade of bronzer, which made her look like a white actor cast by Hollywood in 1970s Technicolor as Cherokee Warrior 1. I had told her many times not to use that. Then I focused. Melanie. Elaine is dead. You told me. She died of cancer, just a few months before we started dating. Melanie turned, and I couldn't help wincing at her makeup. But the expression in her eyes was real emotion, pure anger. I know what I told you, and I told you too. She is always with me. She will always be with me. And if you have a problem with that, or any of my girlfriends... I held up my hand to staunch the Spice Girls rant that I had heard several times before. Melanie, no. Of course I don't have a problem. I thought you meant, like metaphorically, spiritually, you know? Like people always talk about their dead grandma or whatever, looking out for them. But now you're talking about her wearing a bridesmaid dress. At our wedding. My voice rose incredulously, and I could hear a tinny note of panic creeping in. Our whole relationship was flashing before my eyes, as I remembered all the times Melanie had casually said something like, "And we were at happy hour when Elaine said," and we all died laughing. and Elaine told me to not worry about it. She would sort it out. And you know, the next day it was all fixed. The doorbell rang. Melanie ran to the door, and a second later, the high chatter of excited women filled the air as all the friend group trooped in. They were all dressed quite similarly, as always, in stripy crop tops revealing various parts of their body, and cargo pants, and that dreadful orangish contouring. Melanie said, "Ladies, this fella here doesn't think Elaine should be one of the bridesmaids." The chatter subsided, giving place to a nervous, tense silence. The girls exchanged glances. Then Juliana spoke up. "Look, you don't want to do that. Elaine is really happy to be a bridesmaid. Plus, you don't want to make her mad at you. She really cares about Melanie. They were like sisters growing up, you know." The air in the room seemed to thicken slightly. I couldn't quite tell how many there were. The orange contour gave them an almost animalistic quality, and they stared at me with their hostile, strange eyes, which yet were not devoid of some sympathy. Suddenly I yelped out. Something was burning me in my pants pocket. I snatched my phone out, which was glowing bright hot, and immediately dropped it on the floor. My hand scalded. We all stared at the phone, the red glow fading harmlessly. I held my blistering hand, my shock numbing the searing pain. "That was Elaine," murmured the curvy one. Melanie came up to me, looking up into my eyes beseechingly. "Please, don't make her spoil our perfect day. We've been planning this for so long. She has to be there. She has been waiting for this. Just try to understand. She loves us all so much." Tall one spoke up. "Melanie passed a cyclist too close the other day driving home, and he gave her the finger. You don't want to know what Elaine did to him. She draws strength from caring for Melanie, you know. His head was almost cut off by his bike chain. It was wrapped so tightly around his throat." Melanie nodded solemnly. "It cut right through his spine. I could see his vertebrae poking out, covered with blood." I took my phone and tried to quell the shaking that was threatening to take over me. I don't want to appear scared and witless in front of the bridesmaids. My hand was starting to throb. The girls moved around, all still looking worriedly at me. I still didn't know how many there were, 4 or 5. "Of course," I muttered. "Of course Elaine should be one of the bridesmaids." A sigh of relief went up. Then Melanie threw her arms around my neck. "Oh, darling, we're going to have the best wedding ever."
Hello, Sinister listeners. If you've enjoyed this story, then you'll find all the author's information in the description below. For more content, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe to succumb to the sinister.